police contract, the contract with the police union expired on June of last year, June 2012. The parties had agreed under the statute to hold things off a little bit, frankly, until the new chief would come in and get his feet wet and get a little bit more familiar with the contract and how we wish to operate the police department, and what parts of the contract might need to be addressed to allow that. I'll hit the initial highlights. There was a lot of discussion primarily between the union leadership and the chief and the chairman that brought a lot of this together. On the wage piece, just to draw that, the top line number, it was done in a somewhat different fashion than is normally done. There was a adjustment in the current year effective upon ratification of the contract. And the number that was arrived at was a $3,800 bump to most positions. One position that was already a little bit higher than average was adjusted a little less than that. It was designed to bring the contract wages more in line with a number of the other departments, primarily East Windsor. It is non-retroactive. It does not apply retroactively to July 1st of 2012. It doesn't apply to the overtime, private duty jobs, or anything that will be effective going forward only on that. And a 1.5% increase in the 13-14 year, and a 1.75% increase in the 14-15 fiscal year. There were significant changes in both the management of the department and the flexibility that the union agreed to bring to that. Before we get into the management piece of it, the management changes that are involved in that, there was also significant changes to the health insurance plan that the police officers will be under. They were brought onto the same plan that basically all the other town employees are on. We call that a platform plan design, with the exception of prescription coverage, which they've always had a little bit different than the others. But there's not only savings on the increase that the Anthem would charge us on that, there's also, by getting everybody onto the same plan, we eliminate some of the overhead costs that gets allocated back to us by Anthem by containing what are called multiple divisions or multiple different plans with slightly different co-pays and things like that. The premium cost share increases to 18% by the end of the contract. I think we're currently at 15% on that. 16. The most significant parts of the changes, in addition to the wages and insurance, were a number of changes that were agreed to by the parties with regard to changing management of the department and giving more flexibility, both in terms of scheduling, but also large part dealing with selection of both promotional process and assignment to various positions within the department. Highlight a couple of them. The sergeant and detective sergeant are becoming appointed positions rather than promotion. Given the size of the department, one of the concerns that both the chief had and frankly the members of the bargaining unit had was that once someone were promoted into those positions, you were essentially there for the rest of your career. This will allow greater exposure for everybody to see the different departments. It allows the chief to get a better sense of who's got talents in a particular area. The other major, I think, a very significant change is in the promotional process. One of the provisions that had been in the contract was there was a 10-point seniority provision. That got cut in half to a maximum of 5 points for the seniority, and the other 5 points were replaced with essentially chief's or command, I don't want to say evaluation, but command input in terms of where that selection can go to. So gives, I think, much more input to the chief at the level of getting to those final pool of selections for candidates are on. The parties also agreed to implement a drug alcohol testing program. We're finishing off the details of that. When these plans first came into being, there was a lot of concern, and I'd say over the last 5 to 10 years, most of those addressed as a fairly standard protocol, if you will. We're doing that, we're just finishing those off, and that'll be completed hopefully very shortly. Also addressing a lot of the supervisory issues. It's introduced the possibility, as required, filling of the position, but it introduces the possibility of using a rank of corporal. It eliminates the OIC, or the officer in charge, where it's simply the senior officer on a shift. The design is to get corporals trained and down the road with regard to supervisory experience and things like that. And then every shift will have a command officer or supervisor work, and that's the long-term part of this. One of the big drivers in terms of trying to get to this point is obviously with the number of retirements and slots that are being filled. One of the things people are concerned about, and certainly the command is concerned about, is getting folks, hiring them, getting through the academy, and then being in a non-competitive wage position, and then end up losing them somewhere else. I should also, one of the offsets in that wage structure was the longevity provision has been eliminated from the contract also. That's sort of the highlights of the contract. We also went to a 12-week. There's a lot of smaller things that are in there. One of them is going to a 12-week bid cycle rather than a 6-week. It both frees up some of the administrative time that would otherwise be handling that, and gives a little more stability to the officers in terms of what your bid schedule will look like. We simplified the overtime rotation. A lot of these things trying to clean up what had been taking a lot of administrative time from what we have in the chief level. Try to simplify that and give them up more police work.
There's also memorandums of agreement are no longer in effect.
Yes, we put in what's called a zipper clause. It says the contract governs everything. And we went through there was a tally of 8 or 10 memorandum of agreement that had gone back to the 80s, most of which had either been superseded by contract language, subsequent ones. The ones that were still active were incorporated into the language of the contract. One of the things we discussed was that the ability for both management to pick up the contract and understand its obligations, and for the union members to pick up their contract and understand their obligations and their rights also. So there's not a question of what else is floating out there in terms of old memoranda or anything else like that.
And just some questions have been asked of me about the minimum staffing.
Minimum staffing did not change.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming out tonight. At this time, I look for a motion to accept the contract between the Town of Windsor Locks and the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, Local 523.
I'll make a motion that the contract, as you just stated, for the time period July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2015 be approved.
I'll second that. Comments?
I mean, I think with give and take on both sides, I think many of the concerns that the Commissioner Management have been addressed. And I think the resident who came in to praise the police department, I have done so in the past. Because of many personal, and when I worked, the ways they assisted me and my family and staff at the school I worked at. I'm in favor.
And I too am in favor of this contract. I was part of the negotiating team from the town side. And I'd like to just read a quick statement. The negotiations between the Town of Windsor Locks and the local 523 International Brotherhood of Police Officers was, in my opinion, one of the most collaborative efforts working together for a common goal. A fair, equitable contract that both sides feel comfortable with. The contract that was presented before us has significant enhancements to ensure that our officers are treated and remunerated fairly. Also, there are many management rights restored to ensure the department is managed in a truly professional manner. I thank the negotiating team led by Officer Garofalo and Commissioner Brace and Chief Osanich for the display of professionalism throughout the entire process. I feel the contract moves the department forward. The town has the proper framework in place to oversee the restructure and the restoration of the professionalism in the Windsor Locks Police Department. And I guess I'll call for a vote now. All in favor?
Yes.
I too. It's been approved. Thank you. Any meeting?